So your journey and your tryst with South Asian history has been since your graduation, all those years ago.
Look, I traveled to India when I was about 18, 19 was the first time I came here. I traveled through all the countries of Asia to Europe, including Afghanistan and Burma and all those other countries. India was the one that fascinated me the most. I fell in love with India, and I decided when I got back that I would study Indian history and Hindi, and I've never looked back.
You've been an Australian diplomat here in New Delhi and Jakarta. I'm sure you have a bunch of experiences and memories in your years. So tell me the most memorable one.
Look, what I loved about being a diplomat here, and I was looking after press and culture, was I got to meet lots of Indian journalists. I got to travel widely to all corners of the country. Got to meet writers and playwrights and you know people involved in different aspects of the arts, painters and so on. And I get to send them to Australia or bring Australian authors, artists, journalists to India. So it was a great way to just meet people and see the country. So that was the outstanding thing about it.
So, magic. It forms a very important core of in the pedagogy of anthropology itself. And I'm sure you came across so many interesting characters along the way of writing your book.
Mm.
So, how was that journey in the perspective of a researcher and an author and putting it all together into one book? How did magic come about, enliven in your book?
Well, look, magic enlivens itself. You don't. You just need to describe the tricks that these magicians were doing, and plus, magicians by nature tend to be interesting and rather eccentric people. Um, they think in a special way. They see the world in a special way, interact with audiences in a special way. So they're colourful figures. And it's just the social and historical milieu that they that surrounds them is fascinating as well. So I wanted to bring to life the uh, the incredibly rich magical heritage of India, and something that stretches back thousands of years, has always been an integral part of royal courts, of street life, and what I wanted to stress too is that magic is an art. It's an art form. It has been recognized in the past as one of the essential arts as well. So it's not just a you know you shouldn't degrade it. You shouldn't see it as being something that, as Manika Sorkar pointed out in our session, as something that's just the term street magician is that's how we refer to them, to these madaris and Jadoowallahs or Jadoowallahs. But in fact, what they're doing on the street is extraordinary. I mean, they're artists. They're artists in their own right, and what they do takes years of practice and refinement and the skill sets involved. To be out there on the street, surrounded by an audience with no stage effects or anything like that, and still be able to wow people and make them think that what they're seeing is real magic, and forgetting that it's can't possibly be trickery, because what they've seen is so extraordinary that it just looks like it's real magic. Yeah.
You have your doctorate on a very interesting subject, Indian magicians and the Western stage magicians. And I'm sure you have gone through years of research and you have seen how in each culture they have evolved over the years and how they are perceived now. So, what are the changes you have seen in each culture and how different they are?
Yeah, look, Indian magic evolved. Look, you know, th- with Indian magic, the tricks that are being performed today, you can trace them back hundreds, if not thousands, of years. There are still, there are references to magicians performing tricks, in the court of Jahangir, which you will see being performed on the streets of Indian cities today. But then Indian magic started to evolve uh, as a result of the influence of westernization, really. So um, I guess people these were tended to be a more educated elite who took up magic as a hobby, and then some of them were so good at it they took it up professionally. But they learnt a lot from instructional books that were available in the late 1800s. The watching Western magicians coming to India and mimicking their tricks. But what happened? But you also had the reverse thing happening. India had in the Western mind was always associated with magic and mysticism and so on. And so Western magicians who came to India would pick up the tricks of local magicians and then stage them, adapt them to the Western stage and appropriate the costumes, the names, blacken their faces, call themselves the fakir of Shiva or the fakir of Ulu or the fakir of this or the fakir of that. And some of them were so good at it that they convinced local audiences that they were really Indian.
So there was a huge cultural exchange going on. Like
Yeah,
there was a
yeah,
huge
huge.
syncretism was happening.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So at present, what we see might be an intermixture of two very different cultures.
Yeah. Look, the analogy you can draw is world music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So world magic really
Yeah.
is. I mean, there's no, magic is an art form that is really easy to cross cultural borders. I mean, I saw a street magician performing in Calcutta the other day. I know some Hindi, but I didn't really have to know the language at all because what he was doing was, you know, sleight of hand trickery, and you don't need, it's the act itself that is magical. You don't really, need to understand much about what he's saying, and it's also this human desire for wonderment is a universal one as well. So that's why magic crosses cultural boundaries so easily. And there is, I mean, there's been this intermingling of magical traditions been going on for thousands of years, literally. I write in my book how Indian conjuring manuals could be found in Baghdad in the 10th century, translated into Arabic and Persian. So that gives you an example of how, yeah, and this is well before the days of globalization and things like that. So magic was really one of the earliest globalized art forms, and still remains so.
It is it is a conjunctive example of human contact with.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And one last question. So, last Nizam.
Mhm.
And about that book, you write a story from riches to rags.
Mm.
And so, how did you come about, like, through all these Nizams in history, all the rulers across India, there have been so many. What made you pick up particularly on the Nizams of Hyderabad? Because at that time, there were like three, four other dynasties going on. Like there were the Nawabs of Bengal, and there were the Maharajas of Kashmir. But you came on the Nizam of Hyderabad. What about that dynasty made you so interested about it?
Well, the fact that the last Nizam, Mukram Jah, the eighth Nizam, he went to Australia.
Yeah.
So there was this Australian connection. So that to me was the clincher, really. I don't know. I'm fascinated by India, Indian history. I knew a little bit about Hyderabad and the Nizams. I mean, Hyderabad was, after all, India's greatest princely state, arguably, richest and just about the largest and even most populous. Um, what on earth was the heir to this great dynasty doing out in Western Australia, driving bulldozers through the desert? What took him there? What made him tick? What was it about his family, his past, that kind of haunted him and made him do what he did? Uh, yeah, and that's really why in order to understand him, I needed to delve into the story of Hyderabad and the story of the Nizams, and it was fascinating. And it was an extraordinary dynasty. And yes, it's sad what happened. It was a real riches to rags story, um, and you know. Hyderabad is the poorer for it because a lot was lost, not just personal fortune, but also a lot of the heritage too. But it was a very human story as well. So that it just, for me, pushed all the right buttons, and and I felt very compelled to do it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, John. It
Okay.
was a lovely time interviewing you. Thank you so much for your words. Have a lovely time at Kolkata Literature Festival.